evening, everyone. We ready to start? Good evening. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Wadandi people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and will declare the meeting open at 5 o'clock on the dot. This meeting is being live streamed and digitally recorded in accordance with council policy. So we're all reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. While every endeavour is being made to try and only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises or conversations in the background can be picked up in the recording. Here tonight with us is Vice President Lisa Glover, and going around the side we have Alexis Davey, Councillor Davey, we have Councillor Peter Gubler, Councillor Anita Lindeman, Councillor Anne Mitchell, Councillor Grant Patrick, Councillor Diana Shand, and sitting up here beside me is our interim CEO, Gary Hunt, our Director of Finance and Corporate, Kim Dolzadelli, our Director of Operations, Ross Marshall, and we have our Manager, Corporate Services, in Lauren Clifford, and Sam Farquhar down there is taking care of all the electricals. So welcome everybody in the gallery as well. Now we do have an apology from Councillor Bailey, who's unwell. We have no approved leaves of absences in 2.2, and at 2.3 we have applications for a leave of absence. Firstly from Councillor Davey, who has requested leave of absence for the December Ordinary Council meeting. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Lindeman.
Sorry, I'll move that. President McCarthy.
And was, are you right there, Lisa?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favour?
Have to be clear with their hands. Yeah. You've got to be able to see their hands.
I've got to be able to see your hands. Go again.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
And that's carried. Similarly, we have a request for leave from Councillor Shand, who's requested a leave of absence for the December Ordinary Council meeting. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Mitchell. And a seconder?
Yep, no
Councillor Patrick. All in favour? Carried. Congratulations, councillors. They're the first two motions we've moved. Are there any other applications for leave of absence? Okay, announcements from the presiding member. First of all, just a congratulations to the whole group of councillors doing our first Ordinary Council meeting. I hope you feel a little less nervous than I do. I'd also like to announce that grant funding has been received to aid the development of a draft local biodiversity strategy, and this was made possible through WALGA with a $20,000 grants funded specifically by the State National Resource Management Initiative. This grant aligns with our Shire vision to enjoy our cultural heritage and natural environment, and by developing this strategy we will build on the legacy of our predecessors and ensure that we manage our natural resources responsibly and sustainably for the benefit of our current and future generations. And as this project moves along, the Director of Operations, Ross Marshall, will provide updates. There are no other announcements. Item number 4, declarations of interest. In accordance with Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995, care should be taken by councillors and executive to ensure that a financial impartiality and proximity interest is declared, and that they refrain from voting on any matter which is considered to come within the ambit of the Act. Do any council members or executive have a declaration of interest?
Yes,
Councillor Mitchell?
I did mean to inquire about the one regarding the Apple Fun Park. I think I should declare. I'd forgotten about it. There's a distant a cousin get involved, so.
With your permission. President, I presume you're declaring a impartiality interest? Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Are there any other declarations of interest? CEO?
Thank you, President. I'm declaring an interest as listed on the item in regard to, listed on the screen, item report 9.32. I do work occasionally for Walga, and some of those courses are, most of those courses are provided by Walga.
And is your declaration is that a financial interest?
It's financial
Indirect.
interest,
Okay.
indirect financial interest, but I will leave the room. I'm not required by law, but I will leave the room during the conversation on that particular item.
Thank you. That brings us to public question time.
Sorry, President McCarthy, if I may, I also would like to declare I have impartiality interest regarding confidential report item 12.1.1, just through my previous career and commercial engagement with the contractors.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Are there any further declarations of interest? Okay. Item 5, public question time. 5.1, responses to previous public questions taken on notice. I don't have.
You don't need to read those, you need to say it can be taken in the minutes of today's meeting.
Okay. The questions listed under 5.1 were previously taken on notice, and answers have now been provided and recorded in the minutes of today's meeting. So we move to question 5.2 for item 5.2, public question time. We're going to limit this to 15 minutes, as we've normally done. Members in the public gallery are invited to come forward and ask 2 questions at a time to give everyone in the community, in the public gallery rather, to have a chance to ask their questions. We do ask you to fill out the question form, which is up on the dais up there, and leave that for us so that we can include that in the minutes. And when you come up, we'll ask you just to please state your name and address. Do we have any questions from the gallery? Yes, I have some questions here that have come before the meeting, and I can read those out now if we have no other questions. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Mr. Sharp's question was, what plans do the Shire have in place to protect the town? Fuel reduction seems to have been overlooked for many years, and fire burning periods when permits are needed, not in the middle of winter when burning is impossible, are becoming smaller and smaller windows for this to happen. And I believe Ross is preparing a response, but we didn't have it ready for tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Thank you. Yes, just come. you right, Lauren, to get her sorted? We'll just get someone to help you out over there. And Lauren, the forms need to go back and look. I'll move down the way.
Just in Palmer Street, next door to myself, is quite a big property. And over the years, we have had to contact the council because it gets really tall, and at the moment it is really actually a big fire hazard. So I'm just wondering what... the reason I didn't fill in the form before, because I wasn't sure if this was an appropriate place to discuss it. But seeing as the comment was made about fire protections within the town, I thought maybe I should. So, yeah, I just, you know, I'm not quite sure how it's been allowed to get so high. I'm not a fire expert by any means, but it seems that even to burn it off now, it's too tall for burning off.
Right.
So, what can we do? How can it be addressed? Who will contact the people? So is the property actually opposite 10A Palmer Street?
10A Palmer.
Yeah,
All right. Are you happy for me to take that on notice?
sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And would I be able to have your name, please?
Victoria Buckley.
Victoria.
Buckley, Buckley.
And
I'll fill in the form and move to...
thank you. That'd be lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Director of Operations. Take that on. Yep. I have a question here from Phil Jones. Yes, you can. Yes. And Phil, I'll ask Kim to respond first.
Phil Jones from Meldine Estate in Donnybrook. Before I start, I'd like to congratulate Vivian on being elected president by her colleagues. A job well done. And also the other councillors that were elected by the ratepayers. As you know, I was a candidate in the elections, but what I found out during the Meet the Candidates meetings in Yabberup, Donnybrook and Balingup, that all were exceptional candidates for the positions. They have a lot of skills, a lot of keenness to get on with the job and to improve the partnership between council and the ratepayers. So I congratulate you all and I wish you all the best in your 2 or 4 year tenure, whichever may come first.
Thank you,
So
Phil.
well done.
Thank you.
The question I ask is not really a question, it's more of a clarification. During 21-22, I was involved as a councillor, as most people would know, to discuss and consider decisions pertaining to the VC Mitchell Park project and including the Donnybrook Football Club Stadium. At the council meeting conducted in March 22 and again in November 22, the CEO was requested to secure an agreement with the Donnybrook Football Club to contribute $250,000 or 6.5% of the overall cost.
Phil, do you have a question? We've got to get to the question.
The question is, can I seek clarification of where we stand with the funding from the Donnybrook Football Club? Can I continue then?
Phil, is that a different question to what you've submitted?
Yeah.
That's a different question to what I have here.
Well,
So
the question I had 2 questions. One was on the commissioner, which is up on the board. The other one I submitted is not on the board.
So it's just different order.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Gotcha?
Right.
I believe the $250,000 was agreed to in principle by the Donnybrook Football Club, providing the establishment had a 2-storey facility. And as we all know now, there is a 2-storey building being put at VC Mitchell Park. However, it was then decided by the Commissioner, who had the sole responsibility and decision-making authority of council operations at the time, that the council or the Treasury or council reserves would provide $160,000 to the football club. Now, the original agreement was that the $250,000 from the football club was their responsibility to acquire a bank loan. As we all know in the past, the breeding and selling of cattle, sponsors, guarantors.
Phil, I'm going to have to ask you to come to a question, please.
Well, the question is,
He's answering his own question.
what is the Donnybrook Football Club contributing financially to the VC Mitchell Park project?
Is that the question?
Ross, small Ross.
I'm going to pass that over to the Director of Operations, who's prepared a response from your
Yeah.
question.
Thank you, Madam President, if I may. And thanks very much for your question, Mr Jones. I did prepare a response earlier, which you can see on the screen. And following the Commissioner's decision, or Council's decision, which is Resolution 105-23, the funding that was agreed eventually, and I'll paraphrase the response you can see in front of you, was $160,000 from the Donnybrook Football Club. The overall contribution, or sum total, as you can see, is $225,000. And I can elaborate on that further if you wish, otherwise you can read it on the screen.
So obviously that was done after my time, right? Okay, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's also, just a note, there is a commitment to do work in kind. The value of that work's yet to be determined.
Okay. I'm happy with that. I just wanted to clarify it because I lived in the past when that figure was bandied around.
Yeah,
Now it's changed, that's fine. I can wear that, as long as I understand it.
that's okay. And did you have a second question, Phil?
No, the other question was regarding the Commissioner
Okay.
and the Commissioner cost, which has been answered previously.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Phil. Are there any further questions? Thank you, Mr Johns.
Stephen Johns from Cold Street in Donnybrook. I suppose I'm getting sick of coming to these meetings, to be honest. And it's probably just get them all wrapped up and the fun part stuff finalised and move on with it.
Can I just call a point of order?
Excuse me?
Yes.
Yes, I interrupted me. Would you like to repeat the question? Repeat what you said?
It was to ask you to move on to a question.
Does it come from the councils or does it come from the chair?
It comes from... Okay, point of order. Okay, go ahead,
So,
Mr Johns.
This week I actually attempted to contact Mr Hunt and Kim and Roscoe to discuss. There actually is a private arrangement in place for the fun park equipment, which
Do you-
is,
Do you have a question, Mr Johns?
yeah, I just understand now that it's going to tender, but I want to know why there's 127,000 K written in as an asset for it. That's the first question.
Assets are registered in an organisation and then depreciated over what we expect their life to be.
Okay.
Sometimes they're retired earlier than what we thought, or sometimes they're retired later than what they thought. So they can sit on our register as an asset but have no value whatsoever. But if they come to the end of their useful life before we expected, so say we thought they might have a 20-year life, an asset might have a 20-year life, not these, but, and say they come to an end of their life in 15 years, there's a book value, what we call a book value left. And so it's a way you match assets with their use. And these assets still had a value, and that's quite normal. And then when the assets are retired, then you write off that value.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the assets were retired 2 years ago or 3 years ago and they were removed from the fun park.
So they still would have been depreciated over that 2 years, am I right? Kim? Do you like, I'll pass it over to Kim Dolzadelli.
Yeah, so currently they still hold a book value, a written down value, and the figure you've quoted is in a roundabout way correct. It's around about that $127,000. I think part of the actual motion at tonight's council meeting that considers the disposal or advertising actually deals with the right of of that amount, dependent upon the value of the disposal.
Because there's actually, the reason I'm listening to you guys think is there's some things that need to be discussed in confidence before they come to public light around fun park equipment.
And then perhaps you can let us know that Mr Johns is separately.
Oh, I'm waiting for a meeting.
Yeah.
I'm requested to join there via email, so I'm just waiting for a response.
Thank you, Mr Johns.
Okay. And the other one was, there was a skipping over there at some point, so I don't know whether it was JP Metals or Safety Waste or whatever it was, but having a quick look through the video and the photographs and stuff like that, and the cab deliveries, it appears that no one was there. So there's stuff like bolts missing, some steel.
Have you got a question, Mr Johns?
I just want to know where it's gone.
Can I take that on notice and come back to you? Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 6, presentations, with 6.1 petitions. We have none at this meeting. Item 6.2, presentations. So we've got petitions, presentations. We have none for this meeting. Item 6.3, deputations. We have none. So that takes us up to item 7, confirmation of minutes. 7.1 relates to the ordinary meeting of Council Commissioner on the 19th of October 2023. Do we have a mover and a seconder to accept these minutes? Chief Executive Officer, Mr Hunt.
I thought it might just be worthy of an explanation to the councillors. And it came out of the conversation last week. How do you confirm minutes that you weren't around for? So if you read the recommendation outlines that the Commissioner McGowan has verified that the minutes that you're seeing tonight are true and correct. You're not adopting them, you're just receiving them. So that's the only process that we can use for you to receive those minutes. So just wanted to make it clear, you're not adopting them, you're receiving them, and that's the only mechanism you can have from Commissioner to Council, because you weren't there and therefore you can't validate them. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. My apologies, councillors, I didn't read the recommendation. So do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lindeman,
I'll move.
do we have a seconder? Councillor, sorry. Just a point there. Is that okay? I'm just looking for a seconder at the moment.
Can you?
On these,
If you want to discuss, someone has to second it. A seconder is able to speak against the motion.
If we're just noting them, is there a reason they are being
I'm
moved?
just looking for a seconder at the moment. We can't discuss it or debate it until someone moves it second. But a person who puts the second in is able to speak against the motion. And then you can vote on the motion.
Okay, yeah, look, I'll second it, but whether or not...
Seconded Grant Patrick.
Yep.
Now, would the mover like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Look, I think the CEO's clarified the fact that we haven't necessarily been privy to all the documentation, particularly around the confidential stuff that was discussed at that meeting. So as long as it is confirmed that purely we are noting that Commissioner McGowan has confirmed that they are true and correct, I'm willing to second and accept that Commissioner McGowan has advised they're true and correct.
Thank you,
But
Councillor
haven't seen
Patrick.
the documentation myself. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Would anyone else like to speak against the motion?
If I may, I did raise questions about this particular item at the agenda briefing as well, and I understand that what we're accepting here is the minutes of the item. However, we are not granted access via email or prior to it of the attachments of this document that go alongside this document, unless we are to attend the Shire office and view the documents. We're not allowed to have a copy of it, and I personally feel I'm being prevented from being to have access of that unless I take time off work and attend the council chambers to see a documentation on a contract that we are accepting. So I'm just finding it very hard to agree with this item due to the fact that I feel quite discriminated against because I work and I am not available to come into the office to view a document that I feel that I should be privy to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Is there any...
I'll take that issue on notice, see how we might address that issue. I'm not sure how, but I'm happy to explore that further. Can I just reiterate, you're not accepting anything that's in there. Whatever decision was made has been made and done. All you're noting is that you have received the minutes. The minutes have been endorsed by the Commissioner, and you're just noting them. That's the fact that there's an email that's come from the Commissioner confirming that.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Lindeman, did you want to speak to close the debate?
No, thanks.
So we'll put that motion to vote. Those in favour? Four? And those against? Four? And then I'll have to cast a vote again. So that's four. That's carried. Brings us to the next confirmation of minutes, which is item 7.2, special meeting of council for the 28th of October 2023. We are moving that the minutes of the special meeting of council held 26th of October 23 be confirmed as a true and accurate record. Would anyone like to move that motion? Councillor Glover?
I would move that motion.
Who would like to second it? Councillor Shand?
Yes, I'll second it.
Councillor Glover, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm in favour of this motion. I know that we were all there and present at this particular meeting, and would like to have my councillors agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion?
I agree and concur with with the Vice President.
Thank you, councillors. Anyone else like to speak to the motion? All those in... Sorry? Would you like to... Are you speaking to the motion?
No, but you may look for someone against, that's all.
Oh, is there anyone against the motion? Thank you. Okay, all in this, would you like to close the debate?
No, thank you.
Okay, let's put it to vote. All those in favour? Carried. That moves us on to item 8, reports of committees, and we have no committee reports for this meeting. Item 9, reports of officers, which takes us to item 9.1, Director of Operations. We'll just wait a moment for Councillor Mitchell to come back in the room. Right. Can we note that Councillor Mitchell has left the meeting?
Maybe what Councillor Mitchell should perhaps have done is done a indirect financial declaration as opposed to an impartiality. Perhaps there was a confusion because it's a family member that had funds tied to this particular item.
doesn't align with indirect financial interest. It's a choice people have.
Okay, so I'll read out the recommendation that the council instructs the Chief Executive Officer to 1.1 commence the disposal of the idle Apple Fun Park assets by way of public tender in accordance with section 3.582B of the Local Government Act 1995 on a where-is-as-is basis with no warranties. And in 1.2, present a report to council to determine the most acceptable tender once closed. And item 1.3, prepare a budget amendment report to recognise the disposal and present to council. Would any councillors like to move that motion?
I'd like to move that motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Oh, happy to.
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. Councillor Glover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. I would firstly like to acknowledge that generous donation that was initially made of this equipment for the Apple Fun Park, and acknowledge that the donation and the installation of this equipment and the people's times, the volunteers that got behind this project was what put Donnybrook on the map. It was an amazing community celebration, and it has really drawn a lot of tourists to our town. So yes, I just want to acknowledge that, and I understand now that it's time to move on and to move the equipment away from where it is. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Seconder, would you like to speak to that? Anita?
I have a question actually, just that ideally the successful tender submission will include, looking for bona fide locals. Is there something that's being put in place to ensure that they're bona fide locals?
I didn't quite catch it, sorry. No, I just didn't quite hear you, sorry, Anita.
My question was, it mentions bona fide locals for the tender, so I'm just wondering, is there a process in place that identifies bona fide locals?
I will ask Director of Operations Ross Marshall to reply.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Councillor Lindemann, for your question. Part of the tender, assessment will provide details on that, and I'll bring that to Council in a further report for your review.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Would anyone else like to speak? Are you speaking for or against? Councillor, for? Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, reiterating what Councillor Glover said in relation to the generous donation in the first instance, can I propose that as part of that tender process that it is, we look at the benefit to the community as against the direct financial value of the tender, so there's something worded within that process to actually, look at what's being done with it as against just the financial value of that tender.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Are you recommending an amendment to the motion?
Not so much to the motion, but as has been suggested, that the tender proposal document will be presented to council before it goes out to a tender, so that council could potentially have some input as to the scope of that tender. Is that something that's viable?
Does that material, or does that alter this amendment?
Through you, Madam Chair, if I could take that question, and thank you, Councillor Patrick. I think if you read the detail in the report, which I'm not intimating that you haven't, but from my perspective, quite clearly, the officers of the administration have a great respect for the fact that that equipment was donated. There's certainly been conversations had, or consultation had, with Mr. Fry, and his wishes are well known. And the reason that it will come to council for a decision will be on the basis that, in our eyes, it won't be based upon the bottom dollar. okay? We need to recognise the contribution that has been made to the community and by the community. The formal process for disposal and the clearest process is the process under section 3.582 of the Local Government Act 1995. Council is not bound to choose the tenderer that offers the most dollar value. They can make a decision based upon the value that it will bring to the community and any other factor it so determines. So, look, the intent from the administration's viewpoint is that's the process that will be followed.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Thank you, Director of Finance and Corporate. Thank you. It gives me a while to get there. I'd also like to speak to the motion. I have a particular attachment to those assets, and I feel quite emotional when we talk about them because every one of my 18 grandchildren has played on that equipment, and it was half of the incentive to come and visit Grandma and Granddad, so I'm particularly partial to it. Councillor Glover, would you like to close the debate?
Oh, I was just going to ask another question, if I may.
I think
around the item, yes.
Yes.
And this may actually be part of what Mr. Johns was referring to as well. As on the item, on the attachments, there is 16 items on there that were part of the equipment that was that is now up for tender. I don't believe I've counted all of the items that had originally been in that fun park, but I would think that there are a lot of items that are not on here that were there as well, and perhaps that's what Mr. Johns was talking about. Perhaps there were items that was actually deemed as not being salvageable and have already been disposed of. For example, the big slides, they're not on here, and perhaps they've been disposed of. Perhaps it was just that the plastic on that equipment had gone past its use by date, and so all of the equipment that was there is, I don't believe it's on this list because it has perhaps already been disposed of. So is that correct? Is my question.
Madam President, if I may. Thank you, Councillor Glover, for your question. Look, to put it pretty simply, because that's why I like to do things, and as per what we've recommended, it's as is, where is. You may be right, but it's a bit hard for me to sort of go and really do a stock take on that. Hence why we're saying, look, there it all is, and there's might be one piece of equipment on the asset register, but it might be over there in about 4 different pieces at the moment, or 10 or more so. So look, that's why it's as is, where is. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Director of Operations. That moves us to taking it to vote. All in favour? Oh, I thought you did just then. Sorry, Lisa.
No,
Sorry,
I was
Councillor
asking a
Glover.
question. It's all good.
welcome
No,
you
I
to
don't
close
have
the
anything
debate.
further to add. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, now we'll take it to vote. All those in favour? Carried. Sadly. Right.
Could we
on
ask
to-
Councillor Mitchell to return?
Oh, Councillor Mitchell has re-entered the room. That moves us on to 9.2, reports from the Director of Finance and Corporate. And 9.2.1, we are only receiving this item. We're not, it's for our information only. So the recommendation is that we note that the schedule of accounts paid under delegation number 1.2.23 as presented in attachment 9.2.1 brackets 1 be received. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
I'll move.
Councillor Lindeman. A seconder? Councillor Glover. Councillor Lindeman, do you need to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Councillor Glover. All in favour? Councillor Gubler. Thank you. Carried. Okay, moving on to 9.2.2, the monthly financial report for September 2023. We are being asked that the recommendation rather is that the monthly financial report for the period ending September 2023 be received. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Glover is moving. Councillor Lindeman, second. Councillor Glover, did you want to speak to the move?
No, thank you.
Councillor Lindeman?
No, thank you.
We'll put that to vote. All in favour? Moving on to 9.3, the reports from the Chief Executive Officer. 9.3.1 requires us to reads that the Council will adopt the 2024 agenda briefing and ordinary Council meeting dates as follows. I won't read them all out, you can see them all there. And 2, instructs the Chief Executive Officer to undertake all statutory advertising in this regard. Is there anyone who'd like to move that? Councillor Mitchell, seconder.
Second that, thank you.
Councillor Glover. Councillor Mitchell, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will. I just think it's a good idea that we have them all here where they can be easily filmed and recorded, and so people can tune in and see what's happening, and they're on record. And also there is, to move to the other sites, there is a lot of work and time for the officers, and we need to be respectful of that. So yeah, I think this is a good idea, so I urge you to vote in favour of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Glover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Councillor Mitchell took the words out of my mouth, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take this one to vote. Is there any, all in favour? Carried. 9.3.2, and our CEO, Mr. Hunt, will depart. This is an executive recommendation that Council note the biennial review of Council Policy EMCP-1, Council Member Induction, Training and Professional Development pursuant to Section 5.128(5)(a) of the Local Government Act 1995. We're being asked to adopt Council Policy EMCP-1, Council Member Induction, Training and Professional Development, inclusive of the amendments as outlined in the report, which we've all seen. Is there anybody who'd like to move and second this motion?
I would move this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Would anyone like to second this? Councillor Patrick. Okay, all those in favour? Oops, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Glover, would you like to speak to the motion?
I believe that counselling is an important part of training is an important part of a counsellor's role, and I would have people, my fellow councillors, agree to this motion. However, I will have a question going forward after.
When you close. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the motion?
Only briefly in saying that, as Councillor Glover said, it is important. It's also a mandatory requirement for certain aspects. And I think we just need to reassure the community as well that, it won't be used frivolously, and the training that's undertaken will be done as a requirement of the role. And that's pretty much it.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Glover, would you like to close the debate?
Well, I do have I don't know how it fits, but I do have a question around the budget of this item. My question is around that it's $16,000. We do have a small dilemma that there are so many people who do require a lot of training that is essential to perform the role. Will that fit within the budget allocated, is my first part of the question. My second part of the question is that because there was no training that was done while the Commissioner was here, I don't believe, is there excess money from that period that can be put on here so that we can do some essential training and remain within the budget?
Director of Finance and Corporate, Kim Dolzadelli, how would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Councillor Glover, for the question. Yes, the approved budget is $16,000. No, we did not spend any money on councillor training last year. No, we did not leave it in a bucket so we could add it back this year. We actually made sure that it went into our surplus position, such to actually lower any impact on the rate increase. So if we just keep reserving bits that we don't spend, then we're just going to continue to put rates up. As far as the budget goes, I certainly know that Lauren did some work in terms of the mandatory training that was required. I'm going to look for a nod here, but yes, it does actually fit within the budget. Now, the other side of the coin is that Council has power to amend the budget, and if we find through Council that there's a requirement for additional training beyond that $16,000, then officers will find funding and savings within the budget to be able to increase that budget to make sure that you get the training you need.
Thank you, Director of Finance and Corporate. Councillor Glover, would you like to close the debate?
That's very reassuring from that idea, just because we are in a unique situation where we do have so many new councillors on board who all require the training. So thank you for providing clarity around that. So with that in mind, I would urge everybody to vote for this item. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Glover. All those in favour? It's carried. We're just waiting for the CEO to re-enter. Our CEO has entered. Now, this is going to be a little different. We're moving to suspend the procedures to local law. And to do that, I need to have someone move that and second it. Lisa Glover will move it, and is that where we are?
You just need to explain why
We're doing that so that we can have a freer discussion and not have to, we'll still be going through the chair, but we won't be able to just discuss this. Otherwise, we'll have to go through each one and debate each one. So if we can go through this and have a look at where we want to support committees, and then have one event where we move and second. Is that acceptable to everybody?
I was just going to say, I'll
Councillor
second. I'm happy to second the suspension of standing orders so we can discuss it.
Suspension of standing orders, I remember that too. Thank you, Councillor Lindeman. Did you want to speak to that motion? Lisa? Councillor Glover? Councillor Lindeman? Councillor Glover, sit first.
I would think it's a good idea to discuss this out of the meeting process. Thank you.
Councillor Lindeman, did you want to speak to the motion? All, no closing. All in favour?
Sorry.
Councillor Davey?
Two people haven't got votes. Thank you.
Carried. Okay, and I think what we'll do is take each one as it goes through. If we look at the first committee, which is the Audit and Risk Committee. Sorry. I will let the Chief Executive Officer just do an explanation.
Thank you, Madam President. There's a table we'll put up that's got all your names on and all the committees, so that as you're going through, you can see which committees you've been nominated to, and also if there's more nominations than there are people, then we'll have to do a formal vote by show of hands of who you're supporting in relation to that committee. That goes a bit further than, than that.
All right.
Because if you get multiple nominations, we've got to resolve that by a vote.
Oh, great, okay. Thank you. So the first committee is the Audit and Risk Committee. We've all read the documentation and the terms of reference. And the nominees for the Audit and Risk, when we met last week, were myself, Councillor Bailey, Councillor Alexis Davey and Councillor Peter Gubler. Is there anyone else who wishes to nominate for the committee?
I will just withdraw my nomination.
Councillor Gubler is withdrawing his nomination. And that, is there no other change to what we've had from last week? Okay.
I'll just call those out for you, Madam Chair. So yourself.
Yes. Councillor Davey.
Councillor Davey.
And Councillor
Bailey. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the Development Assessment Panel. Now we need 2 members for this committee and then 2 alternate members, which are only required if the first 2 members are not available. When we met, we had Councillor Glover, Councillor Lindeman, Councillor Davey, and then there was a vacancy. So are all those nominations still good?
My preference was to be a proxy or an alternate member for that particular one, if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Was there anybody else who wanted to be a proxy or an alternate member?
I'll be an alternate member.
Thank you, Councillor Shand.
So those nominations are now the 2 alternate members, Councillor Glover and Councillor Shand, and the members
are... So it's Councillor Glover and Councillor Shand, and then the members are Councillor Lindeman and Councillor Davey.
Lindeman and Davey. Thank you.
Yeah. The next committee that we move on to is the Southwest Country Zone of Walga, which requires 2 members and prescribes them to be the President and the Vice President, which is Councillor Glover and Councillor and myself.
Thank you.
The next committee is the Bushfire Advisory Committee, and the nominations we have to hand are Councillor Patrick, Councillor Glover and Councillor Mitchell. Are there any other nominations? Councillor Mitchell?
I'll withdraw.
Councillor Mitchell's withdrawn.
I would also withdraw from that one.
Councillor Glover's withdrawn.
Okay, thank you.
Now we have the Donnybrook School Community Resource Library, the management committee for the library. So and that requires 2 councillors. Do we have any nominations?
I'd like to withdraw from that until after everything else has gone through, then
Come
maybe
back to this
cycle
one?
back. Yep, thank you.
Okay. Would anyone else like to nominate for this committee?
If there was vacancy, I would do that. But if it was if it was full, then I would not do that.
And similarly,
I'm happy to be flexible.
And similarly, I'll fill a vacancy if it's needed. So next we move on to the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Councils, which requires 2 members and then one alternative, or 1 proxy rather. For this committee, I've put my nomination in as for the committee, and I've I've sealed that nomination. Is that what you call it? Sealed the nomination or declared my nomination? The other nominations are Councillor Shand, Councillor Davey and Councillor Glover. Are there any other nominations for the Blackwood Alliance? Can I just ask Councillor Glover to confirm, from your understanding, the two committee members that are on the Climate Change Impact Reference Group for the Warren Blackwood Alliance, do they attend the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Councils?
No, they wouldn't unless they were chosen or nominated onto the committee. But when they do have an item that is presented at the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Council, they would be welcome to come and watch or maybe even make a statement around that item when it's presented, but they would still hold no voting power unless they were nominated to go on to this committee.
And could you also just explain why that is sitting separate to the main council?
It's separate to the main one because this is the group of councils all meeting together with their representatives, and the climate change group sits within that, but underneath that as a committee that reports up to this alliance.
Thank you. So are there any other nominations for the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Councils?
Could I just make a comment on my nomination for this one?
I didn't quite hear you, I'm sorry.
Can I make a comment on my nomination for this one?
Yes.
I'd be quite happy to step away from the Audit and Risk Committee if I was successful in getting a position on this one. I think it's very important.
The numbers in the Audit and Risk are fine if you wanted to stay there. It's good now. It's
just highlighting this as a priority for myself.
Okay. Right, so does that mean we need to vote?
Yeah, we will. So just can I just check that at this stage we've got Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Shand and Councillor Glover?
And Councillor Davey.
Davey, sorry, Councillor. All right. So we need to take this one to a vote. So you'll each get 2 votes. So you can vote for any one of the 4. Would you get 2 votes?
That one stands.
Sorry? Yes, yeah. Oh, so is that by decree of the... Oh, okay. My apologies. The first one is filled by the President. There is 1 position available for 3. So there'd be Councillor Shand, Councillor Glover and Councillor Davey. Yeah, so you'll get 1 vote for either Councillor Shand, Councillor Glover, or Councillor Davey. When we deal with that, then we can put someone in as a proxy if one of those 3 want to do it. Can I just call those because you actually nominated? Yeah. So can I just ask those who vote for Councillor Shand, just remember you get 1 vote. So once you've used your vote, you don't get another one. No, it's an open vote.
Show of hands.
Show of hands, yeah.
Could I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
Would we go through then reinstate standing orders and then take a vote?
Yes.
There?
Yeah.
So we're not voting yet?
You're not just voting to try and get the names right, and then we'll adopt it at the end. All of them together.
We're going to adopt all of the committees all in one bundle to adopt them when we move to accept. But we're now just trying to get names to committees.
Yep. So we've done that, and we're moving on to the next.
No, we haven't yet. We've got 3 for 1 position and 1 proxy.
Sorry, in my understanding, you can't vote while you suspended standing orders. I would have thought you get the one set and then you have to bring out and speak for it.
At the end, we will vote them in. What we're trying to do is get an agreement on who the names are going to be.
But I don't get the opportunity then maybe to speak to or for a person and possibly see why people may want to vote for them on that committee.
All right, well then pull that one out. We'll deal with that at the end.
Okay.
That's
all right. So we move on to the next one? We'll move on, I think. We'll move on to
Can I
the,
just make the point, you can't vote in secret other than for Deputy Mayor.
okay, so do you want to do that vote? So are we going to do that vote now, or do you want to come back to it? What do you want to do? Go on to the next committee, or? Okay. Warren Blackwood Climate Change Impact Reference Group, we need two, and there are two there, Councillor Lindeman and Councillor Davey. Would anyone else like to nominate for the committee? Yeah. Well, that's it.
Yep.
Then the next committee is the Local Emergency Management Committee, which I have already nominated for. So that's fine. And then the Regional Road Group requires one person, and we have Councillor Shand and Councillor Mitchell. Are there any other nominations for that group? That committee, rather? No? Okay, so there's a vote for the regional group as well.
Okay.
So it's just the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Councils and the Regional Road Group.
Yeah.
Did you want to go back to the library before we vote? I think
My thoughts were as after the nominations,
Yeah.
yeah.
when we've done them all, we'll go back to libraries.
Thank you.
Rita. Okay, so how can I hand it over to the CEO to do the vote for the?
Well, we need to go back into
So move.
resume standing orders, and then we'll do those two committees.
Well, I move a motion to resume standing orders. Would anyone like to?
I'll second that. Oh,
Councillor Lindeman, a seconder. Councillor Shand.
Yes, I'll second.
Anyone like to? Oh, Lindeman, Councillor Lindeman, would you like to speak to that emotion?
No, thank
that
you.
Motion, that motion? No.
I'll have you all working.
Councillor Shand.
No, all good.
All in favour? So,
So we need to go back to number 7.
so we're going back to Warren Blackwood Alliance of Councils, where we needed 2 plus 1 proxy, but we're voting for 1.
Yep.
Yep. And that's just repeat. We've got 1 vote only, and we can say, and you're going to ask who each time. Okay.
I think the comment was certain individuals might want to plead their case for this nomination.
I beg your pardon.
That's why we're coming out
Okay.
there. So you need to determine how long you're prepared to let people make their case, and then we'll put it to the
Should
vote.
we say 2 minutes? Is that plenty or more? How much would, let's agree now before we start. 2? Okay. Who'd like to go first? Councillor Shand?
I really don't have much to say, except that when I read them originally, one of the things that was in my past was actually working with groups of people from different areas. And so that was something that I thought would be really good with my skill set, and being able to listen to the people from different areas and what they're experiencing, and then being solutions based. I was going to go the climate change, but I decided not to. So that's about all I'm going to say.
Thanks, Councillor Shand. Councillor Davey?
Thanks, President McCarthy. So my reason for wanting to be involved in the Alliance of Councils and not just the subcommittee is to have continuity between what the committee is working on and the influence of the broader alliance. So the ability to network with all of the people who would be in the alliance and make sure that the messages are being relayed accurately and consistently between the two groups. I think being involved in a subcommittee without having a good understanding of what's happening at the alliance level will mean that our involvement in the subcommittee is somewhat hindered. I note that Lisa mentioned that she thought the work of the subcommittee had been done because the plan had been prepared, whereas I see the plan being prepared as only the very first step, and the ability to coordinate and work with the broader alliance of councils on implementing the plan and updating and making sure it's forefront in people's mind. I think it's critical that the subcommittee is very strongly linked with the overall alliance.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Glover.
I have to just say that it was a joke when I said that. It was hard work getting the plan going as well as the policy, because it was a big discussion and that was a big body of work, that's for sure. But yes, it definitely was the beginning of that too. Most of the work that needs to happen in regard to that is actually what happens in this room and what comes through our own local government as well. The work that goes through the Alliance of Council is of a collective nature in regard to what they can do as a group to look for opportunities and funding going forward to relay that back to council. The reason why I would like to nominate for this position is because I would like to support the Shire President in that, and also if the fact that the Shire President was not available to attend, then I would be of asset to fill in that role as being the deputy as well. So that's why I would like to be on that position, because it's about continuity of knowing about the decision-making process, etc., and being able to relay that back, as I would be sitting in that chair if President McCarthy was not there today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Okay, we're ready to vote?
Thank you. Can I just make the point in case there's no clarity? You can vote for yourself. So can I ask all of those... Oh, sorry. You're already in, so you can do it.
Right. So I call for each person.
You call Councillor Shand first.
Okay. Councillor Shand. Any votes for Councillor Shand? Councillor Davey. And Councillor Glover. No, we haven't got them all. Go again. Councillor Davey was next.
Councillor Davey, Councillor Lindemann, Councillor Mitchell, and Councillor Patrick.
And Councillor Glover.
Councillor.
So, 3?
So 4 for Councillor Davey, 1 for Councillor Shand, and 3 for Councillor Glover.
We just need names. We need names. Yeah.
Councillor Gooding voted for Councillor Davey. No. Councillor Lindemann voted for Councillor Davey. Councillor Mitchell voted for Councillor Davey, and Councillor Patrick. So 4 for Councillor Davey. Everyone else got either 3 or 1. So Councillor Davey is the elected person within our proxy position.
And do we take the next highest for the proxy, or do we?
Good. It's entirely up to the committee.
Would you like to vote again?
Yeah. Unless they want to vote again, then you could make it Councillor Glover. Okay.
Next one.
Okay. So then we need to go to number 10.
No. Which is number 10? What did you guys do?
Number 10 was the regional road group. There were 2.
Regional road group. Okay, we need 1 for the regional road group, and we're voting for either Councillor Shand or Councillor Mitchell. We'll go for Councillor Shand first. Oh, sorry. 2 minutes. Sorry.
Thank you. Right.
Thank you.
So we can...
No, not for that one. Then that would leave it that Councillor Shand has withdrawn, and Councillor Mitchell is for the committee. Yeah, is the member for the road.
No, that's our asterisk. If there was an alternate member, then we'd identify it on the sheet.
So, back to libraries.
Yes, please.
Okay. Donnybrook School Community Resource Library Management Committee. There are 2 vacancies. Would anyone like to fill those vacancies? Are there any in there? Oh, we said we would, yeah. Oh, sorry, I don't have to turn. So that looks like it's Councillor Glover and Councillor McCarthy. Are you Councillor Mitchell? Okay.
I'd do it if no one else wanted to, but yeah, if you are more than happy.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Now, we need to go back to local laws.
No, you've done that. Perhaps if we could go back to the beginning and I could run through the nominees that have got listed, and then you can get
Okay.
the motion.
All right.
Happy with that?
Okay.
So, councillors, if you could just bear with me. Number 1 is the Audit and Risk Committee. There was Councillors McCarthy, Davey and Bailey. Agreed? Agreeing the nominations, not the vote yet. Appoint elected members as Development Assessment Panel, DAP, Councillors Lindeman and Davey, and the alternates Councillors Glover and Chand. Elected members for the South West Metro Zone, the Shire President and Deputy Shire President, as per the arrangements with Walga. 5 is the elected members for the Bushfire Advisory Committee, was Councillor Patrick. Appoint the 2 elected members delegates to the Donnybrook School Community Resource Library Management Committee, Councillors Glover and McCarthy. Point 3, elected members as delegates to the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Council members was Councillors McCarthy, Davey and Glover. 8 was appoint 2 elected members of the Warren Blackwood Climate Change Impact Reference Group, Councillors Lindeman and Davey. 9, appoint the following elected members of the Local Emergency Management Committee, LEMC, Councillor McCarthy. And 10, appoint elected members of the Regional Road Group, member Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you.
If we move those, should be right.
Would anyone like to move that recommendation?
No, just say that there was one that was incorrect, but we're not there, sorry. Just make sure that's.
Yeah.
There was just one that unfortunately got confused.
Okay, let's go back and get it right, because once these are locked in, we're, yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Perhaps it was the DAP one, so yeah, Councillor Davey being, the number.
Ah, yeah, yeah, Lindeman, Davey, Glover and Shand. So just move Davey up. Sorry, move Councillor Davey up 1 line. Good spot. Then Councillor Glover. That's it. Thank you, Councillor Glover. Appreciate that. Okay.
Would anyone like to move that motion?
Could I maybe make a suggestion that we formally put Councillor Shand in as the deputy of the alternate for the Regional Road Group? Just, I might fall off the perch, you never know. Rather than, because it's a formal committee, I was just wondering if it'd be wise at this stage, or does it, who would it ordinarily default to?
It requires, I think, if I'm right, it requires the terms to be altered. There is perhaps.
That's all right, I won't fall off the perch. Easy.
Right, do we have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Patrick.
I'll move the motion.
A seconder?
Happy
Councillor
second.
Lindeman? Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think we've all spoken enough on it.
Councillor Lindeman?
No, thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Let's put it to vote. Oh, sorry, no, Councillor, who moved it? Councillor Patrick, would you like to close the discussion?
Yep, consider it closed.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. I'll put that to vote. All in favour? It's carried. It takes us to item 10, Elected member motions, of which previous notice has been given and no items received. Item 11, new business of an urgent nature introduced by the decision of the meeting. And we have no urgent business, no new business of an urgent nature. So item 12 brings us to the meeting being closed to the public. And item 12.1, matters for which the meeting may be closed, is to deal with items 12.1.1, the confidential item for bitumen products under RFQ 314. This report is confidential in accordance with section 5.23C of the Local Government Act 1995, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public. And C, a contract entered into or which may be entered into by the local government and which relates to a matter to be discussed at the meeting. And item 12.1.2, confidential 2024 Community Citizen of the Year Awards. This report is confidential in accordance with section 5.23B of the Local Government Act 1995, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public. And B, the personal affairs of any person. So the meeting will be closed in accordance with section 5.232 of the Local Government Act 1995 to discuss confidential items. Can I ask someone to move the meeting be closed? Councillor Mitchell will move. Councillor Gubler will be second. Councillor Mitchell, have you got to speak to the motion? Councillor Gubler, all in favour? And I declare the meeting closed to the public. You're welcome to come behind closed doors. Sorry. Okay, thank you. So if the mover and seconder don't speak, we'll carry. Okay. So we still need to ask then? Yeah. They're just coming in.
So we just got to read those two items out.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think anyone's coming in, I
Alright,
think they've all gone.
So, where is, I need to go back. That's the meeting we open to the public.
Oh, on top of page 7.
17. Right.
There we go.
That council, okay. Do you read this? Okay, we'll just read from the meeting being open. We're just going to read the resolutions that were made in confidence. It was moved by Councillor Lindemann and seconded by Councillor Gubler that Council instruct the Chief Executive Officer to award the contract for RFQ 314 bitumen products for 23 to 24 to Malatesta Road Paving and Hot Mix in accordance with their submitted offer.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it was carried unanimously. And then the second resolution was the Community Citizen of the Year Awards for 2024, moved by Councillor Glover and seconded by Councillor Gubler, that the Council approve the recipients as outlined in the report, and note that award recipients are kept confidential until they are awarded at the Australia Day event on the 26th of January 2024, and that was carried. Which moves us on to point 13, closure. The next agenda briefing session will be held on the 6th of December 2023, commencing at 5 p.m. in the Shire of Donnybrook Council Chambers, right here. And I now declare the meeting closed at 6:37.
Very well done.
Thank you.